Today we are going to analyze a few hands that not only brought some serious action to the table, but also highlighted the intricacies of short deck strategy. Let's start with the first situation. Short deck, $5 ante, 9 antes in the pot, 3 players limping. Effective stakes are 40 antes, which narrows down the range of the first limper. His perceived range looks like this. So Jack 10 or plus and other stuff. GTO may say otherwise, but we are talking about real players here. The cutoff's range doesn't matter, I'm on the button and I decide to check. The flop comes and I have a second straight, I get 2 checks. Time to bet for value and protection, right? I choose half pot, because on this board my opponents will continue with almost the same range for both half pot and smaller bets. I bet, and here comes a check raise from a mid-stakes regular. What could he have? He's experienced, does not overplay over pairs, and probably does not bluff much here. This is a pure value, right? It should be check 10, sets, maybe pocket 10s, 10-9, but not many combinations. Most likely Jack 10, 7s, 8s and 9s. In short deck, straight against the set has around 50% equity. But in reality, it often plays out worse, and against a high straight, I'm drawing dead. Even if he has something like 10s, 10-8 suited or similar, I'm still in trouble. I'm considering a fold, and then the cutoff decides to raise too, which means he's got sets or straights. Alright, easy fold. Goodbye straight. I was ready to fold on the flop against this guy actually. To be honest, even one-on-one against the first opponent, I was already ready to fold. Not a guarantee, but likelihood was high. And here, it's not even a question. Know your opponent's range and you can fold anything you need to. The second hand took place at a $50 ante table with stakes ranging from 100 to 145 antes. I have ace-king suited and I decide to limp from middle position. Every hand I plan to play here, I will be limping. A player with a 200 antes stack also overlimps, and then a Canadian player shoves all in. Let's evaluate his range. From experience, I can say there is a definitely ace-king in there and probably a bit more. So we are talking ace-king, sometimes ace-queen, as well as queens, kings and very rarely aces. Plus theoretically, hands like Jack 10 suited, Ace 8 suited, Ace 9 suited might show up, but they don't really impact equity much. But if this guy calls, I would fold Ace King off. Now why would I consider folding Ace King if the player from Poland decides to shove? Because he is an experienced regular, and I think he fully understands the opponent's range and realizes that behind him there is me with 110 antes and another player with 200s covering him. In my opinion, his range would be Ace-King plus, Queens plus, and in that scenario my Ace-King offsuited is not strong enough. In these conditions, it's better to call with hands like 10-9 suited, Jack 10 suited, while top hands are Ace-King suited and Queens plus. I'm not saying this to criticize Mikuczynski play. I actually respect him a lot as an opponent. I'm just trying to show how you can make a mistake when you have 2 big stacks behind you that can hold any hands, including aces. The stacks are big, and even if he is lucky enough to not see ace-king with his ace-queen, it's going to be at best a flip for him. And one important thought, if I were in this spot, sometimes it makes sense to fold ace-king off but call with 9-8 suited. In short decks, such nuances often decide the outcome of hands. And now for the hardest hand of the month, we are playing with a $50 ante stack ranging from 40 to 200 antes. Love that action. I have Queen Jack suited and I overlimp from the hijack against middle position, then button checks. The flop comes 10, 9, 8 with a flush draw. There is a check to me and I would normally bet here with a very high frequency. To my left is an experienced player who loves betting into checks on the flop, plus a passive player who loves to call. I check the button bets, middle position calls, and it seems like my plan is working perfectly. I go for a big check raise because my opponent's elasticity is going to be low and middle position loves to see the turn. I raise to 1050, the button calls and the turn brings a queen. My first thought is okay, I still have to play check call so as not to be exploited against Jack X. But then I start thinking about my flop sizing and the fact that my opponent is top tier. What hands does he have left? He understands that I have a very strong range. He could have flush draws with a jack, a few combinations with an ace, like really very few. He has queen jack with a suited card, I mean clubs, jack 7 with a suited jack, and a bunch of jack kings. I need around 33-34% equity for my call to break even, but I'm almost never ahead. There are at most from 0 to 3 combos of ace x flush draws, a few jack 7 and queen jack, then jack x flush draws, plus from 4 to 10 combos of jack king. And that's a wrap. I'm clearly not doing well in terms of equity, so I fold. Sure, there could be sets that would shove more jack 7, fewer jack king, but in this situation my call would be somewhere between slightly profitable and hugely negative. Since we are talking about true short deck beast, I think a fold is always better than a call. He's not going to call lightly on a big raise on the flop. I hope my thoughts on these hands have shed more light on the world of short deck and help you to see that poker is not just about playing cards. It's about playing your opponents. Hit that like button, subscribe, and I will see you in the next videos. This is Chufarin, wishing you all the best.